Hello, 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 hello. Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Thank you so much for watching. YouTube's looking weird for me tonight. We'll see what's going on there. Um, what we're going to talk about today is, first of all, the main topic. Is Elon wrong about amazing abundance, about a future of amazing abundance, about sustainable abundance, about everyone getting their own C3PO R2D2 type robot? Or, as I have here, is Optimus going to be homeless when he comes to Thailand? Thank you, everybody. Sorry about the sound. Um, Not very smart. I've been traveling. I'm in the middle of traveling, and I squeezed this. I had this thought in my head, and it grabbed my attention, and I had to talk about it. So, what about this? Does amazing abundance really work? Um, and thank you in the chat for catching me on having no sound. But also, we're going to talk about some hits that have been taken on Elon recently. A really exciting Model Y story about safety with Model Y. Yeah, I make mistakes. This I'm not like it. People think I'm smart, and I am. I have moments of smart, but I also have moments of boy, not very smart. And this is one that I just keep screwing up on. And then just some political stuff, but I haven't put together like my typical live stream, so this is probably going to be shorter than usual. But I just had this particular idea. Like even though I'm busy and I'm in an unusual a place I'm not super comfortable, I had to talk about this topic, and I thought this was a good time and also a chance to say to everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, because probably not doing another video for at least a few days. So thank you to everybody. All right. So um, the first thing I want to address is if you think about Elon talks about Optimus and everybody having their own Optimus, and I don't think that's reasonable. And the problem is that I'm sitting here in Thailand where human labor works for as little as $10 a day or less. In fact, there's under the people working again, the minimum wage is about $10 a day, but there's people working for less than that. The people sneak in from Myanmar, people sneak in from Laos. They work for less than that. They live in shacks and in very uncomfortable circumstances that, from my perspective, but better than what they would have in their home country. So I had this analysis in my head, and I was like, I ran this through Grok, and I think Grok is correct here. Imagine a Tesla Optimus costs Tesla $20,000 to make. I think it's really going to be 25,000, but let's go with 25,000. And they sell it for 30,000. And then they try to sell it in Thailand, and Thailand puts a tariff on it. And it ends up being that the buyer, the owner of a Tesla Optimus, is paying $40,000 for this Optimus. Call it runs at an average of 12 hours a day for 300 days a year for 8 years. I gave it some basic assumptions: 3% interest, electricity at 4 baht per kilowatt hour, 31 baht per dollar, by the way. So this is about 11 cents, 12 cents, 13 cents a kilowatt hour. I pay a little bit more than that at home. Maybe a commercial user would get a lower rate. Superchargers like 7, 8 baht per kilowatt hour, but just called it 4 baht. This real secret is the amortization is the killer. So when you work out all the costs, just the capital cost of having Optimus, because Optimus cost, basically the value of human life in Thailand is lower than the value of Optimus. It's harsh, but it's just true. And this is Thailand. When you get into Vietnam, when you get into India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, when you get into African countries, wages are lower, the value of life is even lower. It's harsh but true. So Grok's analysis, I think this is roughly fair, is that Optimus' total all-in cost is going to be $1.70 an hour. And you can hire people in Thailand for $1 an hour. I think 7-Eleven pays about $1 an hour, 30 baht an hour. There's lots of jobs where people are making in the ballpark of $1 an hour. In Thailand, maybe $1.50. It may be $1.60 in some places, but I think this is, in other words, Grok thinks I is a little more generous, and it thinks human labor, maybe $1.50 an hour. But when you look at all these other countries, Philippines, Africa, South Asia, human labor is just cheaper. So how are how does Elon expect the Thai working class person, right? My wife's family is some middle class, some working class. How do they expect these working class people who are struggling to find jobs that will pay them $10 a day to spend $40,000 on an Optimus? It doesn't work. And I haven't heard from Elon how Elon talked about the price of Optimus being, the cost of making it is like $25,000. So the cost to the consumer who's going to buy it, maybe, is there some plan to get the cost down? Yeah, that's, thank you. Goham says that's interesting. The cost of human labor being cheaper than what Optimus can do. Yeah, this is, I think, a problem for Cybercab as well. That you think Cybercab's going to be cheap and Cybercab's going to sell rides for 40 cents a mile, let's say. In Thailand, you hop on the back of a scooter and it's way less than 40 cents a mile. It's actually cheap. I think human labor is, and then you go to India and it's even cheaper. So there's really large populations on this. I mean, India's got like 1.4 billion people. You add in Pakistan, you add in Bangladesh, you add in Africa. I don't know if that's half the world population, but it's a third. That, the cost of human labor is so cheap, the cost of human drivers is so cheap that it's difficult for Optimus and Cybercab to really act in volume in those places. So I just wanted to stress that, I want to believe in a world of amazing abundance. And I think that Tesla and other AI technology will deliver amazing abundance to the rich world. And I mean Japan, United States, probably China, probably Europe. Now, Europe is so dumb right now. According to Mark Anderson, they've made everything that robots are going to do already illegal. So, I don't know if Europe will actually catch the wave. Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, there's parts of the world that will adopt robots, adopt autonomy, robo taxis, whatever. And Australia, New Zealand, maybe. And these countries will experience abundance. But you have countries that will resist. You have states in the United States that will resist. Canada might resist, for all I know. And then you have like Mexico's probably wealthy enough that this will work in Mexico. I don't think Mexican laborers are, $2 an hour. I think they're more than $2 an hour. I don't know. I think most of South America, most of Eastern Europe, human labor is more than $2 an hour. So you can see where Optimus comes in and does any work that cheap labor would already do. So Jim Manley says cost reduction occurs over time. Eventually, Optimus will be built totally by robotics. Yeah, so Optimus is going to largely be built by robots in the first place. It's not like they're expecting the Optimus line to have tens of thousands of workers on the Optimus line. They're going to engineer Optimus to be made at very, very low cost using automation already. Why don't you use a phone, tablet, cheap laptop instead to monitor video and audio in streams? Why don't I pay someone to run my live streams? I mean, why don't I have, Joe Rogan has a guy, right? Lex Friedman probably has a guy, because I'm not at that scale. I'm sorry, I'm like, I get, I'll get 10,000 views on this video if I'm lucky. It doesn't make sense to invest in all the things you're thinking about. And I'm not doing this. I'm not trying, some of the YouTubers you're watching, I'm sorry for going off on this tangent, but some of the content creators you watch are trying to live off of this. They're trying to and I was successful for a while in making good money, but I own so much Tesla stock and I don't make that much money at this income is kind of trivial, right? Like I'm maybe I make $30,000 a year doing this stuff, which is not bad. Maybe it's 20, I don't know. It's not 50. And on a good day I make more than that on the market on Tesla stock going up, and on a bad day I lose more. So it's these live streams are for people who can tolerate my inadequacies and like the way I think, right? 14 forces, all this still runs into the issue that society is not oriented towards people and not having to work to provide for themselves and family What will be left for people with Optimus? So I'm a lot more optimistic about this, that I think humans have always adapted to new technology, and we created dishwashers, and people used to wash dishes found other work. And we created washing machines, and people who wash clothes found other work. And we created ATMs, and they told us it was going to destroy bank teller jobs. And then the banks became so much more efficient. They opened a lot more branches, and they found higher value work for tellers to do, and teller jobs doubled. So this very common theme of people saying, "Oh, this wave of technology is coming, and it's going to destroy all these jobs," ignores the fact that humans adapt, companies adapt, everybody adapts, and no one predicted that people like me would be making money as content creators. Nobody predicted, like I used to be successful at search engine optimization. Nobody predicted that there would be search engine optimization jobs, search engine marketing jobs, social media marketing jobs. When you have these waves of technology, they create waves of opportunity. And my advice to anyone who's worried about losing their jobs is watch for the waves and try to figure out how you can ride those waves and create opportunity for yourself. I think there's going to be who was talking about this. Somebody was talking about the gig economy. Maybe it was I don't know if it was limiting factors. Somebody was talking about the gig economy, and there's just going to be many opportunities for you to work on a limited basis, perhaps um, work with other people. The AI and technology is going to lower barriers, and some people say it's going to make big corporations bigger. I think it's going to make big corporations irrelevant. It's very hard to predict what's coming, but assuming that it will destroy all jobs is just silly. Um, Yeah, I think that humans are very adaptable, and humans will always adapt. Look, Elon thinks that jobs will be wiped out. You'll be able to work if you want to. I think Elon's theory is there's going to be so much abundance that people who don't want to, like, a lot of jobs suck. And if you're going to get enough from universal high income or whatever, that you're not going to be able to generate much more value by working, you're not going to work some crappy job you don't want to do. But if you find something you like to do and you can make money at it, you'll do it. um, So I just want to hit this basic point, though, that point number one is that Optimus and I think Cybercab also are not going to be successful anytime soon, and I'm not sure ever, in low income countries, whether it's Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. So, and we're talking, this is a lot of people. Southeast Asia is like 800 million people. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, just like, I don't know, 3 billion people, 2.5 billion people. Africa is probably another billion or more people. I have no idea. Right. Like, I think Latin America, I think the incomes are high enough, although, Venezuela is certainly in the tank right now. I think most of Eastern Europe is, you know, high enough income that Optimus generates value in those places. And I do think you'll see both with Optimus and Robotaxi, the biggest impact will be in the wealthiest places that choose to adopt first, because the value generation is higher in those places. So it's not going to be a uniform spread of autonomy. Autonomy is going to go where it generates the most value first. It's going to generate a lot of cash flow that'll enable producing even more Optimus, even more Cybercabs, and then it will spread. And then as supply increases, prices will fall, and it'll be able to spread to more places. Um, 14.4 says, I find it wild there would be any universal income, let alone a high one. Current assistance programs are a massive influence buying and political exploitation. Yeah, I think it's more like, is it really universal high income, or is Elon saying that prices will be driven so low that you won't need that much income? It's not clear. And I don't understand what Elon's view of this universal high income path is. 13th Biosphere says low income countries have engineers making $70 per hour. That sounds like total BS. Here in Thailand, I talked to university engineering students in Thailand a couple years ago, and I'm going back to less than 2 years ago, and I'm going back in February to see that particular event again. My understanding is that a university engineering graduate in Thailand makes less than $1,000 a month, and they probably work more than 40 hours a week. They're working like 60 hours a week. It's they're making like 250 an hour, $2 an hour. It's really disturbing. University engineering graduate. Japan, they make like $30,000 a year coming out of university. It's pretty shocking how low pay is in other places and how high pay is in the United States for engineers. I don't know what low income country you're talking about. Where engineers are making $70 an hour. Are there a few engineers making $70 an hour? Sure. Are a lot of them? No. That's just silly. Um, yes, 14.4. I'm going to talk about housing in a second. Well, I think Optimus could reduce housing, but let's talk about that. Let's just get into this. The other issue is constraints. What are the constraints to this amazing abundance that Elon talks about? So one of them is real estate and housing. Optimus can't make more land, right? There's a certain amount of land. There is land in places where people want to live, and there's land in places where people don't want to live. So I lived in Melbourne, Florida, and anywhere on the coast in Melbourne and the Space Coast, right? Whether it's Satellite Beach or Cape Canaveral or Melbourne Beach or Vieira, whatever, pretty much anywhere in any coast, almost everywhere, people want that land. People want to live on that land, and there isn't enough for everyone to live on it. And then you have cities where there's a lot of things happening, and people want to live in the center of cities. People want to live near transit stations, or maybe Optimus makes transit irrelevant, and then you just live anywhere and you just hop in a cybercab. But there are places people want to live and places people don't want to live, and there's going to be some process of deciding who lives where, and it won't necessarily be now. Look, I'm in a condo tower right now. It's a half condo, half hotel tower right now, and this is, by the way, it's not bad. It's a one bedroom condo. It's a little small, but you can buy one of these for about $90,000. And there's a transit station next door. And there's a parking garage. And you can buy a BYD Dolphin for $13,000. A decent city car EV. I mean, but this is on the outskirts of, this isn't even in Bangkok. We're in a place called Nonthaburi, which is the province northwest of Bangkok, or one of the provinces northwest of Bangkok. We're on the, I call it Greater Bangkok, and my friends who are from Bangkok and my wife are like, there's no such thing as Greater Bangkok. You're either in Bangkok or you're not. I don't want a robot girlfriend. Okay. That's what they said before smartphones, ice scooters, e-scooters became cheap enough, especially used. India, with a population of 1.5 billion, there are more than 10 million engineers making enough to make Optimus worthwhile. It's not that, first of all, Optimus isn't the replacement for engineers necessarily. Optimus is the replacement at first for work that is dangerous, repetitive, and boring. Right? Now, AI might do the work that the engineers do. There's brain work and there's physical work. Engineers aren't doing physical work. Optimus is for doing physical work. Optimus isn't necessarily for doing engineering work. That might be the AI in the box. And that's different because the cost structure for AI, for chatbot AI, is basically zero, right? The problem with Optimus and the problem with Cybercab is you have to manufacture them. With AI, you just make another copy of the software, or you just call another instance of the software. So the marginal cost of another use of the AI is very, very small. But the cost of another Cybercab is $40,000. The cost of another Optimus is $40,000. That's a very different thing. Optimus can't control taxation or permitting. Yeah, that's another one. But that relates to the real estate problem. That number one, you have a limited amount of land, and then number two is you have to get permits to build, and governments get in the way, and all kinds of things like that. The reason the Constitution, yes, is best is because it provides the best opportunity for personal responsibility of individuals. I think the reason the Constitution of the United States is best is because everywhere else sucks, with the exception of Japan. But their economy is not growing. So much of the pleasure in life is when you can feel superior to other people. Maybe look up field engineers. They do hands-on physical work for a living. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, Optimus might eventually do like high-skilled, high-value work, and that might be 5 or 10 years away. But in the short term, we're talking about work that is dangerous, repetitive, and boring. Okay, Elon has said repeatedly, Optimus is going to do work that's dangerous, repetitive, and boring. Will it eventually do surgery? Sure, but that's not right away. And even so, like, there will still be the grunt work. The whole point of this video is not there's some high-paying job that Optimus could replace. The point is that there's a crap ton of jobs, billions, 3, 4, 5 billion jobs that Optimus will not replace because the cost of Optimus, when you take into account amortization, you take into account electricity, you take into account maintenance, and you figure that Optimus lasts, let's say, 8, 10 years, Optimus cost per hour is higher than human labor because human labor is so cheap. What would keep the government from taxing robot labor? They tax everything out. Absolutely, B. Absolutely. I've never government will find a way to tax it. Whatever it is, government will find a way to tax it. So the other constraint is raw materials. And Elon doesn't talk about this, but this is a big issue. And we're seeing little bits and pieces. In fact, Elon even mentioned that what's happening with silver right now, silver's price has tripled. I don't remember, I haven't followed silver, but I remember 2 years ago or so when I was leaving the United States, I had some physical coins and bars or whatever, not a lot. And I sold it to a friend for, I think it was $25 an ounce. And now it's like $75 an ounce. And that's a problem because silver is actually useful in industry. And now all of a sudden something that's a key component has gone up in cost and is becoming scarce. Well, if Elon's admitting that there's a scarcity problem with silver, and we know there's a scarcity problem with rare earths, and there's other, when you start to decide you're going to make 100 million Optimus a year and you're going to make 10 million Cybercabs a year, well, those are going to use a lot of raw materials. You're going to make a crap ton of solar panels. You use a lot of raw materials. You're going to make a lot of batteries. You're going to use a lot of raw materials. Where are the raw materials coming from? So it's a potential bottleneck for Elon's vision of amazing abundance. I'm not saying that amazing abundance will never happen. I'm not saying that the problems that I'm talking about won't be solved eventually. They're not going to be solved quickly. As much as Elon wants to believe that these things will be solved quickly, they're not going to be solved that quickly. Let's just check the chat again. With abundance, people expect that other people will not have more than they have. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's something to the problem of some people will be jealous of other people having more. And look, it's practical reality. The people who own the AI, the people who own the robot factories will probably have more. Those of us who invested in Tesla early and, currently have millions of dollars of Tesla stock, if Tesla stock is going to 10x, then we're going to have more money and we'll be able to buy the real estate that we want. We'll be able to buy other things that we want. Matt Bruce says, I own a bit over 900 acres. Very nice, of which 2 have been paid for, nearly self-sustaining houses, and a thirdly completed in mid-27. I'll take UBI and robots and the low value. People can have boxes in megacities. Yeah, some people will choose to live out in the countryside. Personally, I prefer the countryside to big cities. We chose to live in a small city rather than live in the big city. Most people work just hard enough not to get fired and get paid enough money to not quit. George Carlin. Carlin was the genius. I miss George Carlin more than I wonder if we could get an AI to really pull off a true George Carlin AI type video. That would be pretty cool. So anyway, just need to be aware of these constraints. We've got energy. I think energy won't be a constraint because you'll just have large amounts of solar. Is AI going to make a lot more food than we already have? Isn't food already abundant? A lot of goods really are already abundant, but real estate and raw materials, I think, are the biggest hurdles to this fantasy. Fooey on Beatrix Potter, Justice for Farmer McGregor. I think you're making some kind of literary reference that I don't remember. It's not clicking for me. Okay, I'm going to move on. There's this guy Zach who runs a channel called Jerry Rig Everything, and for some reason he's on this kick of just hating Elon. And he hated Cybertruck, and he just hates everything about Elon. So he goes on this kick. Elon talks about the radical left using fraudulent government programs, blah, blah, blah. And Zach says if only Doge spent its time on this instead of deleting medications for the world's poorest kids. Nobody believes you anymore, Elon. Doge failed to connect anybody of anything. Okay, so first of all, millions of people believe Elon. He has 230 million followers. It's not like he has 229.9 million who think he's a liar, right? The vast majority of Elon's followers probably believe him most of the time. We're skeptical of some of his ideas, some of the things that he says, but we generally believe in Elon. Um, he says Doge failed to convict anybody of anything. Doge doesn't prosecute. Doge, the U.S. Department of Justice prosecutes. Doge found out information and made recommendations to other departments, and other departments acted on them as they acted on them. As I understand it, Doge saved the U.S. government about $100 billion a year. Now, did Republicans in Congress choose to turn around and waste that $100 billion on something else? Yes, probably. But it saved $100 billion that was going to some bad things, and maybe some of what the Republicans are doing it with are better. I mean, the Republicans aren't great either. Elon isn't in charge of the Republican Party. And Doge did not believe medications. So Zach is just a pathetic liar. And I just, that's one of the hits on Elon. The Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post. Unbelievable that the Washington Post would do something this stupid. Elon's business empire is built on $38 billion in government funding. Who owns the Washington Post? Jeff Bezos. What does Jeff Bezos own? Amazon, AWS, and Blue Origin. If you run the numbers, and I went through the numbers, AWS has had somewhere between $50 and $100 billion in government contracts from a variety of governments. Okay, so just that alone is more than Elon's supposed funding, right? You get into, wait a minute, this was a contract for SpaceX to provide a service, and SpaceX's price was lower than everybody else's, and it's more reliable. And they're able to take humans to the space station, and there's nobody else. We're not working with Russia to do that anymore, so $50 billion spent on Amazon shopping. I mean, I think it's ridiculously stupid to say that that's a favor to Jeff Bezos because Amazon's a good deal, right? But if you're going to say that, government money to pay for SpaceX services that are competitively priced are government funding, well, then Bezos gets $50 billion in Amazon shopping and $10 billion in contracts for Blue Origin. Well, that's like $150 billion. That's like 4 or 5 times as much as Elon, three to four times as much as Elon got. If Elon got it, which he didn't. So, and then what about Microsoft? How much money did Microsoft make from government contracts and from government mandating effectively that you use Microsoft products? So, like the courts insisted on Microsoft Word, let's say, and then every law firm had to use, because it used to be WordPerfect, by the way. I think everybody shifted to Microsoft Word, so all the law firms had to use Microsoft Word, and everybody used how much money did that make Microsoft? How many corporations had to use Microsoft products in order to satisfy some government mandate? It's a crazy amount of money. Jerry rig everything was at the Cybertruck unveil event and said glass is glass just before Franz broke the windows. 14.4 says Jerry rig's video on Cybertruck being repaired was very much in Tesla's favor. He has moments. But he has massive Elon derangement syndrome. So 13th Biosphere says the boring machine should be put into work getting the silver. Boring machines are not designed for that. Will the reportedly diminished silver supply derail Tony Seba's vision? I think that's my point, is that we don't understand yet how all these raw materials constraints and real estate constraints might interfere with the future amazing abundance. I don't think it's quite as simple. Yes, Happy New Year to everybody. Merry Christmas to everybody. Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you want. What is my opinion on the SpaceX Starlink IPO? Let's talk about that now. I get asked about the SpaceX IPO. It's a SpaceX IPO, no, not a Starlink IPO. If I understand correctly, Starlink IPO is no longer going to happen. It's going to be a straight SpaceX IPO. What was suggested was that it would IPO at a valuation of 1.5 trillion, and that $30 billion in stock would be sold. Now, my expectation, and the people are like, well, and then all the Tesla owners will sell their stock and buy SpaceX stock. It's only $30 billion being sold. If retail Tesla holders own, let's say, $500 billion in Tesla stock, we can't sell $500 billion in Tesla stock, and we can't even sell 10% of our Tesla stock to buy SpaceX stock because there's only 30 billion available, and other people are going to buy it too. And other people are like, well, they'll sell more. No, they don't want to sell too much Tesla SpaceX stock because they want to retain control of the company. I think they're using the scarcity that there won't be that much stock available to drive up the IPO price. The IPO price, the valuation might go to 2 trillion or more, and then maybe there'd be $40 billion in stock available. Um, People ask me, like, are you going to buy? And it's like, well, I don't know the numbers yet. I don't make these decisions today on an IPO that's going to happen 6 months from now. When the IPO is coming, there are documents that come out that tell you this is where we think the company's going. This is our financial position. This is our expectations. These are our risks. There's a lot of information in the documents. And when I see that information in the documents, then I am able to form an opinion about whether I want to buy this or not. I'm not likely to sell much Tesla stock to buy SpaceX because in 2026, I still think Tesla's going to be flat, waiting to skyrocket in 2027. I don't think the growth in SpaceX is going to be comparable to the growth in Tesla in, let's say, 2027 through 2030. I think, and I also I have trouble figuring out, how do you value Mars? How do you value AI satellites? I can value Starlink. I think Starlink is brilliant, but I don't think Starlink builds you more than, let's say, a $3 trillion market cap. I understand launch services have a value. It's hard for me to put a number on that long term. I think I'm very excited about Mars and the moon, but I don't know how to put numbers on what all that's worth. So that's why, like, for me, it's like, well, when the IPO documents come out, I'll look at it and make a decision then. I don't understand how people think you can make a decision on a SpaceX IPO before you see the financials. When can we expect satellite factories on the moon? I think satellite factories on the moon are probably 10 years out minimum. I think that there's a lot that has to happen on the moon before you get to the point of manufacturing and having your what does they call it, a mass driver? A thing to launch without having rockets. Um, Andy Onion said 1.5 trillion looks like bit rich for a SpaceX valuation today. Starlink alone is $1 trillion company. If you just look at the future of Starlink, 300 million customers paying $1,000 a year each. Think about that. 300 million customers paying $1,000 a year each. That's $300 billion a year in revenue. What's the cost structure? The cost structure is low. And I think Starlink might be bigger than that. So it's insane. I think 2-3 trillion is the long-term value of Starlink alone. Until Starship is proven, the value is very much not solid. Well, by the time that the IPO happens, presumably Starship will be proven. I don't know what you think Starship needs to do to be proven. I mean, they've launched the boosters. The boosters are launching effectively. They've brought Starship in re-entry and done pretty well. They're pretty damn close to bringing, like, it's landed, I think, twice on target. I think things are looking really good for Starship. But what does proven mean? Why does it have to be proven when it looks so good? It's almost certainly going to happen. I'm afraid that SpaceX go public will only create more government SEC oversight issues for Elon. If the Democrats win an election, it's obviously a problem, but it's a problem for SpaceX anyway, because they have so much, they need FCC licenses and other things in order to be able to launch. But I think that the core shareholders are going to be much larger, so it's going to be a fairly small amount that's floated in the market. Is there a working automated satellite factory model? I don't think so. I would not sell Tesla to buy SpaceX, but I do have other holdings I would liquidate to buy SpaceX. Okay. I'm not selling NVIDIA to buy SpaceX either. Enjoy the options videos, Warren. Please make more as you continue to learn more and do more options moves. I don't. So for those who are watching and aren't aware of this, if you are a YouTube channel member, if you are a X subscriber or a Patreon supporter, or you support me on the Daily Lie, I've done a couple videos. I think 2 videos recently, maybe one before, about my option strategy, and have done some other private videos a while back. And if you want to know more about my option strategy, please join the channel or support me as a subscriber on X or Patreon, whatever, and you get access to those videos. I don't expect to make more options moves in the near term. So I still might make another options video, but I don't expect to change my own position on options for a while. I can change. Short story, by the way, is that I have my options. The one thing I'll say about my option strategy is that there's a lot more to it, but I have my options in a Roth IRA. So if I'm correct that Tesla's going to, let's say, 5x, the option's like 20x. Well, where do you want most of your gains? You want most of your gains in a tax-free account. Roth IRA is a tax-free account. Although, if I lived in California, that would be a problem because now California wants to tax wealth, including in Roth IRAs. If Starlink is that valuable, it would have competitors. Oh, that's so funny. That's the competition is. You're going with the competition is coming. There's no guarantee Starship will succeed. The issue facing Starship is crew escape. Well, Starlink doesn't need a crew. Starlink launch doesn't have a crew. Um, if they only launch Starlink on Falcon, it's already killer. But when they start launching Starlink they've already launched Starship and done demonstration deployments of Starlink satellites. It's basically in the bag. Hi, Karsten. Um, yep, Blue Origin and Rocket Lab will both be launching comms networks. They don't have the cost structure. It's not just like number one, SpaceX has a lower launch cost. Number two, SpaceX has manufacturing of its own satellites at scale. Rocket Lab doesn't have any of that. And Blue Origin is far from it. And then the thing is, if SpaceX has the lead and accelerates and they get first mover advantage and they get all the customers, then Blue Origin comes along with, 5x the cost structure. They can't undercut on price. Like it's a really foolish investment. My personal opinion, it's a really foolish investment to try to build a network to compete with Starlink when Starlink already has like 10,000 satellites and universal coverage around the globe, and they're growing ridiculously fast. And then they're going to add larger satellites, and they're connecting to cell phones. Like it's going to be over. Like nobody's going to be able to compete with that. It won't matter on if you're in a big city, you won't be using Starlink. You'll be using cell phone networks, but for 300 million customers or so who don't have access to good cell phone networks and good broadband, it's going to be killer. The terafab only makes sense to be made on the moon or in space. No, I think the terafab will be made on Earth. I think that kind of manufacturing needs. Eventually, will we make chips on the moon or in Mars or in space? Yes, but not right away. Um, Laughing at the idea of Starlink not eventually having competition is short-sighted. I don't think you understand first mover advantage. If SpaceX got market power and then stopped innovating and started getting bloated and careless, then yeah, you're right. But if SpaceX continues to innovate and continues to innovate on launch and innovate on satellite technology, they're going to have a dominant market share. And then how are you going to take market share from them if you can't undercut them on price? How do you get to the scale to be able to undercut them on price if you can't get the customers in the first place? Yes, Jim Manley, the competition is coming all over themselves. Classic. SpaceX has contracts to launch competing satellite systems. Sure, they do. Any comment on satellite data centers? I think that AI data center. First of all, it's becoming harder and harder to locate AI data centers in the United States because of politics and local politics and other issues. Um, Even though the cost right now of launching AI satellites will be higher, you go 3 years out, the cost of launching AI satellites will be lower than the cost of deploying the same AI on Earth. People like Bernie Sanders, many states are being very difficult on AI, generating electricity. And once you scale enough, you need so much electricity that you just can't get that electricity on Earth. You put satellites in a what's called a solar synchronous orbit, so they're in the sunlight like 99.5% of the time. Then you can't do that on Earth, right? Because you only get sunlight for less than 12 hours a day or less. Right? So then you have to have batteries backup. The satellites don't need the batteries. Um, and the cooling, like the cost of cooling is much lower in space. It's almost zero. Bet on Rivian and Blue Origin because they have to catch up to Tesla SpaceX magic button, right? They have the magic button, exactly. That's how they're going to catch up. What first mover company is still without real competition? I don't know. Apple's doing pretty damn good. Um, Apple stopped innovating a long time ago, and they still have. I don't know, they get like 80% of the profits in the cell phone world. Google still dominates search. I don't know if you when you what other search engine do you use? I mean, I think Grok and ChatGPT are cutting in on Google search, but Google search is still dominant. Um, But I don't care. Like you're asking me like for you're not thinking from first principles. I'm saying from first principles, it doesn't make sense to compete with Starlink because Starlink will have a dominant position, and you won't be able to undercut them on price, and you won't be able to grow to reach the scale where you can undercut them on price because you can't undercut them on price. I don't see how it works. Um, they can look. Blue Origin can have satellite internet. That's great, but their cost of satellite internet is going to be like 5x Starlink's cost of satellite internet. So how do you make money? In my state, the majority of consumers will see the electricity go up $20 a month to support the recent approved build out of the new generation. Yeah, maybe. Well, I think if governments got out of the way of massive solar farms, then you wouldn't have a problem. But governments people don't realize that government interferes with new solar farms. There should be solar farms everywhere. China's building solar farms like crazy. The United States, it's hard to build solar farms because the utilities don't want the solar farms built and they have political power. Okay, so let's move on here. Where were we? Constraints, Zach. We did that one. There's another hit on Elon. This is from Forbes. Elon's net worth now exceeds the annual GDP of more than 170 countries. So first of all, net worth is not the same thing as GDP. That's like assets to revenue. It's not the same thing. It's an idiot comparison. But think about this for a second. This guy has been so successful that he's created, let's say, $750 billion in net worth. Should you be mad at him for being so productive, or you should be saying, why are these other 170 countries so fucking lazy? Like, what the hell is wrong with these other countries that they're not producing more value? Why would you think the problem is Elon being successful instead of everybody else sucking? Like, how about the problem is all these other people sucking instead of the people who are productive being productive? It's like mind blowing to me. I remember my kids were in school, and I was trying to anticipate and deal with the communist mentality that prevails in public schools. And I said, hey, the school superintendent, I didn't make this up, but I stole it and used it with my kids. The school superintendent has decided that these poor kids with F's and D's are struggling, so they're going to take the kids with A's and they're going to reduce them to B pluses, and they're going to use those grades to give the kids with D's, bring them up to a C, and bring the kids with an F up to a C. And my kids didn't like that idea at all. You know why they didn't like that idea at all? Because they knew that the kids who were getting F's and D's were assholes, lazy assholes. And they knew they worked hard for their A's. So they didn't want to see government, the school district, take their hard work and give it to somebody else. Like, how about the lazy fucks do something useful? Right? Like, maybe Somalia should start producing something other than pirates. I know people are complaining about people bashing Somalia, but have they really produced much more than pirates? I don't know. Why doesn't Forbes have an issue with trillion-dollar companies? Some companies have many times the cash on hand that Elon has. Oh yeah, cash on hand. Elon doesn't have that much. Governments, why don't we talk about how much money governments have? What's the net? What's the net financial the financial assets of the U.S. government? How much land does the U.S. government own? How many buildings does the U.S. government own? Do I have any comment on SpaceX relationship with Hedera Hashgraph HBAR? Never heard of it. On-site solar electric transport is expensive. Okay, so I just like this is a big thing for me. Like, if you're upset that Elon is making so much more money than other people are producing, what really you're saying is he's producing so much more value than other people, right? Because that's what he does, right? He produces value, and that's why he doesn't have the net worth because somebody just he's stealing from some pot, right? It's not like there's a pot of cash and Elon's reaching his hands in and taking more out, right? He's producing more value. Jeff Bezos produced more value, right? If they produce more value, they get more. If you want more, produce more value. If you're not happy that Elon has got so much and you have so little, taking away from him is not the answer. The answer is go do something. Go be productive. Somalian pirates have diversified into benefits recipients. 100%. Well, that's just another form of piracy. A really positive story I just want to hit on here. This is Ray for Tesla. If you don't follow Ray, follow Ray. Great account. He's generally a good Tesla guy, but he also often has news from China that's worth seeing. So a Tesla Model Y plunged off an approximately 800-meter cliff. It's like half a mile or something. 800-meter cliff. It fell like half a mile, tumbled down the mountainside. The vehicle was severely damaged. His windows were shattered. But the A and B pillars, the A pillars are the ones that are from the hood up to the roof in the front. The B pillars are the ones between the front door and the rear door. The front passenger door and the rear passenger door remained intact. The passenger cabin did not collapse and the battery did not ignite. The driver suffered only minor injuries. After the rescue crews dismantled the wreckage, the vehicle was recovered and taken away for repair. The incident was described as a miracle of survival. So if you remember back, not that long ago, there was I think it was a Model Y that the guy intentionally drove off a cliff. It's called Devil's Slide in the south of San Francisco, near Montara, California, um, south of Daly City, south of Pacifica, between Pacifica and I used to live in this area between Pacifica and Montara. There's a section of road called Devil's Slide. I think they may have gotten rid of it or put a tunnel in instead. But anyway, this guy's driving with his wife and kids in the car, and he goes nuts. And he deliberately drives off this cliff, and they fall like 500 feet. And I lived there, and every week there was a story about somebody driving off the cliff and dying. And the rescue crews, went down to the car expecting everyone to be dead. But it was a Model Y, and everybody was alive. And I think the kids had minor injuries, and maybe the wife had minor injuries, maybe the husband had more injuries, and it was just like crazy, right? So this one's even crazier because it fell 800 meters, which is more than triple. It's like quadruple the distance that Model Y in California fell, and still the guy's like minor injuries, walks away. So that's a really nice good news story, a good news Tesla story. And then one political thing. I know this is going to annoy some people, but Marvin says if you want to get shot to go to the U.S., like there's this vision that people have that the United States is like, man, shootings every day and everybody's ducking for cover. I just want to say this. Now I'm in Thailand right now. I've lived in Japan for 16 months of my life. I lived in Thailand for about 2 years of my life. I've been in Asia for the last 2 years, and I lived in Japan for a year before. Right, so it's a total of 3.5 years that I lived outside the United States, and I'm 59, so about 55 years that I lived in the United States. I've never seen or heard a shooting or seen a gunshot wound in my life. Never. Never seen it. I've been in high crime areas. The Albany City Court's in a high crime area. I've spent a fair amount of time in Manhattan. I've been in 125th Street. Um, Never seen a shooting. Never heard a shooting. Um, Never seen a stabbing. Never been in the presence of that kind of crime. Have I seen somebody punch somebody else? Yeah, probably. I think I punched somebody once. Um, a very large share of violent crime in America happens in tiny pockets within certain cities. If you understand where you are in America and you avoid those tiny pockets, you'll be fine. Just like you avoid the Bologna train station. I love crapping on Bologna because we went to Bologna. We stayed there for 4 or 5 nights, and personally, I thought Bologna was a shithole. Other people are defending Bologna. It's like, really? Have you spent time at the train station? Have you really spent time at the train station? You're going to tell me Bologna is not a shithole? Graffiti everywhere. The university's covered in graffiti. Almost anywhere you go in Bologna, there's like graffiti, and not even like pretty graffiti. It's just like crappy ass graffiti. Maybe it's a soccer thing. Maybe it's an anti-Israel thing. It's not. Yeah, it was. It's just awful. Um. So yeah, like 55 years, never saw a shoot. I'm from the town of Guilderland. I was on the town board at one point, but I went there for elementary school, middle school, high school. When I was on the town board, which is ended 2011, um, there had never been there's a 35 member police force at the time I was on the town board, and the police force had been in existence for like 34 years or 30 years or something like that. No police officer had ever drawn their gun on the job. I mean, because of a conflict in their job. They'd drawn it at a range or something like that, but they'd never drawn it on duty for anything. Like had ever not just fired a gun, pulled the gun out of the holster. Had never happened in my hometown. Um, okay, so I think we covered everything in the chat. I think we've covered the basic point. Let's just get back to the basic point. We'll give you a little bit of optimism. Feel bad for Optimus having to push a shopping cart and pick up stuff off the road because Optimus in Thailand is not going to be successful, and Optimus is going to be homeless. I know y'all feel bad for Optimus, but I think Elon is incorrect about a future of amazing abundance in the developing world, in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, in Africa. I think that there's a very large share of the world's population where human labor is cheaper than Optimus robots will be on a per hour basis. Does there come a point where they become more efficient manufacturing? Optimus maybe, and then you have constraints with related to real estate, related to raw materials. I think the amazing abundance is going to be. I want to believe that Elon's correct and we're going to get there, but I think it's a much harder road than he sells. He always say you need that great execution, but I think it may be more than about execution. 14.4 says, any comments on XAI? I use Grok all the time. I love Grok. I think Grok Imagine is great. I think I have probably 10 conversations a day with Grok Ask. I also use Gemini, and I think Gemini is pretty good. I think Grok is weak on, and Gemini is also weak on reading Asian text off images. ChatGPT is better at that. Jim says a Navy friend who married a highly educated Brit lady was waiting for her to tell him when they wanted to live in the U.S., and he rotated back. She burst out in tears saying she didn't want to die. Oh, yeah. People have this crazy idea about America being dangerous. I mean, Melbourne, Florida, so much of the United States is perfectly safe, and it's just silly. Where will homeless Optimi charge? Good question. But they can charge at 230 volts in Thailand. The issue with amazing abundance is the same reason socialism and communism never work. People who set themselves above others will not surrender control. I do think that government, the biggest threat to all a happy future for everyone is governments. FSD should be included in the price to save lives. They're not going to sell cars. You're going to pay for a robo-taxi ride. Tesla's business will not be selling cars within 5 years. Their business will be providing robo-taxi rides and providing, maybe selling Optimus. Their business is not going to be selling cars. That's a dead issue. Robotaxi will pay the. Tesla's going to own the cars. They don't need to sell them. They're going to own them. They'll probably have fleet partners, and they'll charge fleet partners what they want, but they're not going to sell you a car. You're not going to pay $250,000 for a cybercab. That's what a cybercab is going to be worth, if not more. In the rich world, while the price of a ride is more than $1 a mile. Great adversary of human well-being probably is the influence of existential doubt. That's too deep for me. Portion of Optimus production should be allocated to disabled individuals for personal use. Well, you can open your own company and you can make your own humanoid robots, and then you can decide how you want to allocate your humanoid robots. But my company is going to make decisions based on what I think is important, not what you think is important. I appreciate that you have this fantasy that Elon and the Tesla board should start giving free shit to people, right? That's not how you maximize shareholder value, and that's not the economy we live in. And government is stealing all our fucking money anyway, so why doesn't government take care of the disabled people? Instead of taking care of Somalis who are cheating and government officials who are cheating and everybody else who's cheating. Like, let's get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in government, and then we can take care of all the problems that you want to take care of. But if you're going to keep stealing our money, no. I gave it the office. I gave it tax day. I give a lot in my taxes. So no, you're not taking more of my money to give to some whatever your charity. We should give money to disabled individuals, and somebody else is going to say we should give money to children for gender affirming care, right? Why don't we take care of people with gender affirming care too? Why don't we take care of? Why are you only cared about disabled people? Don't you care about the poor people in Somalia? Shouldn't we give robots to Somalia? I mean, you can come up with an endless list of causes. All right, I rambled. I got out of control. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Mark for moderating. I don't see Jim or the other Mark, but I guess I I didn't hit as many people today as I usually do, but thanks everybody so much for watching. And I think I'll probably be doing a live stream next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.